All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining and welcome to today's virtual conference, Analytics at the Edge, brought to you by IIoT World and sponsored by Hitachi Vantara. I'm Lucian Fogoros, your host and co-founder of IIoT World, and on behalf of our sponsor, our team, and the speakers today, thank you for joining. We've had over 700 people register from 85 countries, and I'm humbled for your interest and support. We will monitor also the social channels, so feel free to send your questions in the Q&A that you see there as we track those and make sure we answer those either today or via social channels after the event if I don't get to them. Leverage the hashtag Hitachi Vantara _IIoT. Large part of this of the value for this session is the opportunity to engage with the speakers live. So please do post the questions right in the Q&A window here on Zoom or your preferred social channels. Every person that posts in the Q&A will get an invite to our VIP community. While you're getting used to the Zoom platform, please drop us a note. Let us know where you're logging in from. You can leverage the chat option for that. And also as a reminder, this session is recorded and will be available to view on demand after today's broadcast. Joining us today, representative from Hitachi, and we're excited about the topic and discussion. They are poised to provide keen insights into the emerging and rapidly expanding area of moving data management in analytics closer to the site operations and faster response and cloud cost savings. I'd like to bring the first guest, Mr. Steve Garbrecht. He's also the Director of Product Marketing and Digital Solution at Hitachi Vantara. He's also on our Board of Advisors. Steve, give us a brief introduction as we introduce everybody, just a 30 seconds introduction of yourself.
Great, thanks again, Lucian, and welcome everyone to this session. My name is Steve Garbrecht. I've worked in the industrial operations and OT area for about 40 years now, working for companies like Honeywell, Schneider Electric, Wonderware, GE, Siemens, mostly in the area of MES and historians and optimization applications. And more recently here, I've joined Hitachi Vantara to manage our product marketing for our industrial data ops products.
Thank you, Steve. And our next speakers will also be Haruna Kachiyama, the product manager at Hitachi Vantara. Welcome. Haruna, give us a brief introduction.
Yep, thank you, Lucian. I'm Haruna Kochiyama, project manager for Lumada Industrial Data Ops in Hitachi Vantara. And Lumada Industrial Data Ops is our IIoT offering with data management and data connectivity capabilities. And that's what I've been working on. The IIoT side is what I've been working on this few years. And today I'll go through some presentation to introduce the value of having analytics at the edge. Thanks, Lucian.
Thank you, Haruna, and welcome. And last but not the least, Rich Nagel, the principal solution architect at Hitachi Vantara. Welcome. Brief overview, please.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Rich Nagel. I'm a solutions architect out of the Los Angeles area. I've been involved in IoT since about 2010, and from that time, I've worked on various different solutions in various different verticals, and I'm happy to support our Lumada industrial product line and tell you a little bit more about how that can work for analytics at the edge. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Rich. And I'm going to turn it over to Steve, who will provide introduce the topic for today, and also turning over for the facilitation of the discussion. Steve, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks again, Lucian. Well, welcome again, everyone. Really appreciate you being here. We've looked at the audience, and we've got a good mix of technical folks and managers who are basically attending this session. So thanks again for joining. I wanted to talk a little bit, just kind of get a brief introduction of some observations I've made in the industry. You know, we've talked about IT and OT and the need to converge those things together. And, you know, there's been a chasm that has existed, I would say probably up to maybe about 6 years ago, where there were clearly distinct functions. They used different applications, different approaches to doing things. There are even, you know, differences in philosophies, in the politics in the companies of what was going on. And you know, a lot of that is being broken down every day. And it really, has no need to exist going forward here. You know, the tools that system integrators who are doing SCADA systems and automation systems are starting to evolve and should evolve into providing some more of the IT type capabilities that have been used quite often in business for business purposes. And then also the IT folks are getting more and more aware and capable of understanding industrial processes, the shop floor, operations management, to also add a lot of value as part of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about edge use cases and edge tools to do things here, and why that's important to, from an operations point of view. We'll also talk about some new tools that are available. So if you're a system integrator, for example, that's doing SCADA projects today or MES projects, you know, there are things that will let you extend your business into doing more business-focused applications. You know, things that are used by more than people just within the operations team, or the business users, for example. And also from an IT point of view, you'll be able to pull in more information from the shop floor, from different purposes, for different purposes like that. So we're talking about, you know, not just applications that will create descriptive screens of what's going on, like you would see in an automation system, but also predictions and prescriptions of what to do based upon that. So a new advisor class of applications with dashboards that actually deliver that. And you can start doing more things like Customer 360, where you're pulling in data from lots of different systems across the enterprise, including the operations systems, displaying that for better use. Providing better training capability for your new operations personnel as they come in. Once again, giving them a more holistic view of what's going on, instructing them on what to do as part of that. And you want to stay tuned the entire session here, because at the end, we're going to give you a link to download one of these tools. It's very easy to use, drag and drop, easy to configure. You can use that for free from a trial point of view. So with that, I'll turn it over to Haruna to start the discussion.
Yep. Thank you, Steve. So let's jump into the presentation. So before going to the details of our analytics offering, we want to introduce what we value to run industrial data analytics at the edge, which is like closer to the site operation. The first one is low latency. As the data gets processed closer to the field or data source, it will be capable of real-time processing. Second one is filtering out non-critical information at the edge before sending it out to the public cloud or data centers or anything. Keep data on premises environment privately. So some users wants to keep the data in secure and private network. And also by having analytics closer to the data source, it can avoid network congestion and higher security with closed network. Cost savings from using cloud service. So as the larger the data volumes get, the cost will be higher to maintain the IIoT platform. And the last advantage is that you can process analytics even there is no or low network connectivity. So for example, in remote locations or where network connection like Wi-Fi is low, you cannot see the analytics or monitoring results in real time if you don't have the network. But if you have it in the edge, you can process that with low network connectivity. So those are some of the key items we value to run the analytics and the data management more towards the edge.
Hey, Haruna, a quick question.
Sure.
The type of applications we're talking about running at the edge here, are they
Right.
Windows-based applications, or are they you know, another operating system? What do they usually look like from a technology point of view?
Yeah, it could be Windows-based applications, but we offer some Linux-based operation systems, and we can run those systems on Linux or Windows. So those kind of operation system we're looking.
Great, thank you.
Okay, going on to the next slide. So in this slide, we describe how tools for system integrators are evolving over the time. So evolution of tools used by system integrators in both OT and IT are merging into a single class of industrial DataOps. So this opportunity can provide SIs to focus more on OT to leverage and migrate to IT side, and vice versa for IT experts also. So when these tools started evolving in 1990s, the tools were separated into two categories. OT side, which deals with more on the data from manufacturing floor, shopping floor, plants, etc. And the second one is IT, which involves more on the business transaction data. So in the OT side, it started with like a SCADA historian, as you guys know, in 1990s. And in 2000s, more focused on object-oriented IDE, event databases. And in more recent years, it began with the IIoT platform and like influx database, like the time series database and workflows. In the IT side, it started with the ERP relational database, and then .NET Visual Studio and ETL tools were introduced for SIs. And more towards these recent years, like AI and machine learning platform, like Python, Java, Data Lake emerged. So with all those tools introduced until 2010, in recent years, OT and IT convergence came in. So more towards how to merge those two sides together. So that's where industrial data ops came in, and that's where the platform capability came in to bring IT and OT world together. So in the next slide, we will focus more on how we define edge. So here we have a described this definition of the edge in 3 tiers. So,
hey, Runa, just a quick question that just came in. What do you mean by workflows in the OT evolution slide? The workflow applications that we have there.
Right. So it's more of a data, like a transformation, those kind of data jointing, those kind of things that comes in as a OT, and more of a how you can connect those processes together and manage the data.
Yep. Yeah. And workflow kind of came in. BPM started to be used by MES systems too around that time frame, and kind of route the items from a checklist point of view from one user to another, as part of the overall process. So, like Runa was saying, it's a kind of a process flow within there too. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Steve. Yep. So there's we define the edge as 3 tiers. So deep edge, shallow edge, and enterprise edge. So in the left side, that one the closest to the data source or OT IT assets, we call it deep edge. So this is where real-time analytics, how quickly we can feed back the analytic results to OT or IT field, and data integrity, like more of a data accuracy comes in. And in the middle, where we have the shallow edge or gateway edge, here we have AI and ML service execution near the edge and remote management. And the third one is the edge, enterprise edge, and it is more towards the platform or cloud. So we do more of a machine learning model training at the platform layer and deploy those machine learning models to the edge side. So from here, I will describe how we leverage this concept in our industrial IoT offering called Lumada Industrial DataOps. So here's the high-level view of our industrial DataOps offering. So this is focusing on AI ML portion of the edge capabilities. So in this example, we show how we use Lumada Industrial DataOps capability in the real world scenario for anomaly detection and prediction. So boxes colored in gray are some capabilities we provide. So first step is, of course, to collect the data from OT data source, such as like sensors, and also from the IT data sources. And the edge component that you can see to the right of the asset box ingests the data and streams it to the digital twin in real time. So that digital twin in the central element is in this platform. So where you will have your model attributes, properties, and etc. So digital twin is then integrated with the machine learning capability that we have, and that does the model training and inferencing. So also as an option feature, you can also integrate a third-party physical-based simulator to a digital twin in seamless manner to enrich more the data. This also provides additional values such as inferred sensor readings for angular acceleration, which can't be directly measured with field sensors. The example of results you can get from machine learning model being run in this example, anomaly detection prediction analysis. So these results from the model can be captured in events and notifications. And ultimately, it will an operator will consume the prediction results like failure in certain assets.
Thanks, Haruna. Yeah, quick question here. So this is kind of a great framework that we have here, but some people want to have a little bit higher starting point for analytics. Is there are there templates available for this?
Yep, sure. So yeah, we have several of them. So across Hitachi, there's various researchers, data scientists that have been developing these industrial analytics templates over years. And Vantara is able to leverage all that IP. And some of the example of our templates is like anomaly detection that you see here. Also anomaly prediction, remaining useful life, image detection, classification, and many others. So depending on what your challenge is, we can leverage those templates. Does that answer your question?
That's great. I think that's great. And everybody, as you ask questions, if you could type them into the Q&A instead of the chat, that would be great. I see a few questions coming in via chat that we can also look at here. One more question, Haruna, about the digital twin that we have here. So, digital twin means a lot of different things in my experience, depending on what vendor or what group is talking about it. What does a digital twin mean to us? What is its purpose?
Right. Yeah. So digital twin for us in Lumada industrial data ops sense, then it represents more of a high value industrial assets. So digital assets of like a high value industrial assets. So it's more of a intended represent assets such as like industrial robots, factories, like a transmission line, amusement park rides. So those kind of high dollar optimization and outcomes is our what we intend as a digital twin. And with our digital twin capability, we integrate that data with machine learning models that Hitachi owns and brings outcome such as like asset uptime or like maybe maintenance or image-based failure, like those kind of outcome can be brought with our digital twin and machine learning service combination.
Great. One question that came in here was about security. So is there inherently a more secure capability of running things at the edge versus at the cloud in other areas? Can you talk a little bit about security?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so if you can keep the data at the data at the edge more closer to the edge, then you don't have to bring those data outside of your network, then that secures your data so that you have a more high security in that sense. And if you want to bring those data to the cloud, we also have a capability of authentication and authorization between our gateway and our platform. So that could be also brought in.
Great. And then, from an edge versus cloud point of view, when we talk about analytics, we are talking about analytics running at the edge, but the actual development and the training of models, where would that happen? Yeah,
so model training is more a little bit needs a higher processing. So we usually have that model training more closer to the platform side. and then bring that results to the edge. So that's how we offer the Lumada industrial data ops capability.
Great. And could these could these solutions be used outside of industrial? I know we talked about industrial data ops, but could it be used in healthcare and in other areas?
Yeah, sure. This is a horizontal platform capability we have. So depending on the customer's challenge, we can bring those into the different verticals too.
Great. And in our definitions of edge, we've kind of borrowed those from I know from Gartner, for example. They talk about a deep edge and so forth. Are there any other organizations that have kind of defined edge at different levels? Do you see?
Yeah, I think there is. I think we've been Steve, we've been talking many other analysis, data analytics organizations. So I think we continue conversation with them. So.
Yeah, it's interesting too. In industrial, the Purdue model has existed for many years, level 1 through 5.
Right.
And, as you get closer to the control networks, you're really getting in close to the edge. But we're kind of talking level 3 and above, I think, right?
Right. Yes.
Some of the more open control networks and optimization networks, and
right.
going up from there. Yep.
More above a PLC level, sensor level. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Haruna.
Right. Okay. So from here, I'll hand it over to my colleague Rich Nagel for a demo and overview of our architecture.
Great, thank you, Haruna. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I do.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to share my screen and go through the slides. Or actually,
Sure.
you have the slides right there, Haruna, and you can just lead me until I get to the demo. Okay, that's perfect. All right. And so if you go to the next slide, hopefully you've gotten a good understanding of our edge offering. And for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to go through some specific use cases of how you can deploy analytics at the edge, various different types of analytics with our products. And so the use case that we have is that of a manufacturer. Got a beverage manufacturer, one that is in the that does coffee roasting and produces cold brew. And so there's various different types of analytics that they need for the different systems that they have. They have the roasting process that we'll look at, as well as the bottling process as well. And so the two products that we have here, one is our IoT core that Haruna was referring to, and that really consists of two main components, and that is in the gray boxes that you see here. One is our IoT gateway, that's on the left, and it's software that resides close or really on the machines that are on the manufacturing floor. And so this could be next to or next to the roaster that's there. And it supports containers, which can perform various different types of analytics. If you're not familiar with containers, basically a container is just a piece of software that has all the dependency it needs to run typically for specific tasks. And so it would have the code and libraries and any other stuff that's needed. Then you can deploy that container anywhere where there would be a Docker engine that could support it. And so you can take the same container and then easily put it onto other different edge devices as well as scale it. And so that's our edge gateway. It supports different protocols. It does store and forward. There's different device management capabilities, as well as the ability to support these analytic containers. If you go over to our IoT core on the right, that's a Kubernetes-based environment that hosts an industrial data lake. And so it's got 4 different types of databases to take in structured or unstructured data. So you can have your video analytics or images that are stored in an object store. You might have time series data, and that's what we'll be looking at that needs to be stored. And then there's also NoSQL and SQL databases too to meet your needs. The platform's capable of data routing, so you'll get the data that comes in from the different sources, and it can put it into different databases as needed, or route it to a protocol like Kafka, for example, that can be fed to other downstream applications. And then it also does, most importantly, container management. So it has the ability to deploy those containers that contain your analytics, to the edge, as well as communicate with them with commands. And so maybe if you've got a container that's running and you want to do something to interact with it, maybe it's to change a set point, you know, of where the analytic thresholds might be, or even send some control information down. You know, if a temperature exceeds a certain threshold and you want to turn something off, that could be possible as well too. And so that is our IoT core offering. And then in the red boxes there, you see the different containers, and those are created with a tool called Pentaho. And so Pentaho has been around for about 20 years or so. And it started out, you know, as an ETL tool in for getting data from different files and databases and ERP systems, and connecting that and transforming that data for analytic purposes. But it's evolved over time to include more and more analytical capabilities. And so, you know, about 10 years ago, when big data became in vogue, it adapted to connect to those different types of sources and feed those sources at scale. As well as you see here, it's connected to an MQTT stream, and so it's capable of connecting to various different types of streaming protocols to be able to get that data in and manipulate it. And then perform all different types of analytics. And that could be anything from just basic calculations to univariate statistics to even deploying analytics like an FFT, frequency analysis, or machine learning algorithms that have that pipeline that feeds that inference engine. And so it's a very flexible tool that it really acts the same way as a manufacturing line. It takes in that raw data, it can inspect it, it can clean it up if needed, and it'll perform some kind of transformation on it to be able to produce a product. In this case, the product's an analytic that's going to be packaged up in the format that's needed for those databases or those tools or that data model, and sent downstream. And so, you know, what's great about this tool is it's able to, you know, perform all the pipelining activities and data inspection activities and cleaning, as well as the different type of analytics at scale, either on the edge or at a higher up level where it might be needed. And so the one analytic that we're going to look at is OEE. That's a very common KPI that you'll see in the manufacturing space. That stands for overall equipment efficiency. And so it might be based on a machine itself, the roaster that we have, or a manufacturing line or a plant. And it consists of three different variables: your availability, your performance, and your quality. And so the availability would be a measure of downtime. You want to make sure that machine's running as effectively as it could and avoiding loss. And that's not always easy to figure out what that is. There might not be a tag or data that's coming in that says, hey, I'm running. And so you might need to infer that based on the data that you have. And so that's where Pentaho is useful, to be able to inspect all the data that might be coming in, and then you can make a selection of what would be used for that runtime. And it'll vary from machine to machine to line. And so that's where it's really flexible to be able to get that information in and perform that calculation. And then we're going to look at another one for advanced integration. So at higher up, maybe at the plant floor, we could have our IoT core, and that could get data from across different roasters or machine lines. And in this case, we want to look at energy consumption. And so it's good to be able to retrofit for different types of analytics as they become needed. And so more and more manufacturers are paying attention to their energy consumption. And so Pentaho could be used for that as well too, and aggregate that data and send that up as needed to an analytics application to be visualized. And on the right-hand side there, you see different types of endpoints of where these analytics may need to go. Maybe it's up to a cloud. And like I said, maybe it's to a Kafka stream to be able to be consumed by other applications. Pentaho does a great job of helping to model things efficiently, and so it can be served up into a data mart where that can be efficiently queried and as your applications allow and inspected. And then there's other systems like ticketing and maintenance, as well as the systems that we have for visualization. Pentaho has an analytics server and can do visualizations as well to visualize your analytics. So if you go to the next slide, Haruna. Overall, this is just a more complete view of what Pentaho can do. It can hook up to those various different types of different protocols and ingest that raw data in coming from, maybe it's an OPC-UA server or a historian through a JBC connector, and that MQTT data that we're going to show, and take that raw data, clean it up, and then send it to the different areas where it needs to go, whether it be a database or a protocol, and then finally that end user application. So with that, I'm going to
Rich, just a quick comment. I believe we have over 450 connectors for different systems with Vantara, right? Not just the OT systems, but the IT ones too.
Yeah, good point. And so that's really where it excels, is to be able to connect to those OT types of sources that are here, as well as, you know, traditionally all the different types of IT systems that are needed. So, and that could be anything from databases to, you know, files that exist in various different types of formats. And be able to read all that data in and then perform the transformations on both your IT and OT sources.
And does all this stuff have to run in containers? Is there any other options?
Yeah, good question. So, you know, what we're enabling with our latest release of Vantara is to be able to containerize this in a lightweight format. And so that's what's really nice about running it at the edge. So it used to be, you know, more of a heavier analytics engine, but now we've lightened it up and to be able to run on those edge gateways. But it can either run in a container or it can run standalone on, you know, really anywhere on the major operating systems for Linux or Mac or Windows, in on-premise or in the cloud. And so you've got the choice to containerize it or not. And run your analytics accordingly. Yeah.
And what format can the data be in?
The data can consist of various different types of formats that the data's come in. And so we've got, in many cases, and I'll show you in demonstration, you know, a JSON feed, but it can be files of various different types. The database connectivity that it has will be able to grab data in that manner. And so there's a lot of different formats that the data could be in. The analytics themselves can do, you know, analytics on unstructured data, video, or you know, images and things like of that nature. So there's really various different types of formats that you can perform the analytics on.
Great, it sounds great. Let's get into the showing the actual using it in action here.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. So to start, sometimes it's best to start where you'd like to end up. And so what we're looking at here is the end result, a visualization of that coffee manufacturer or roaster, and a high level, you know, operation screen of what they might be looking at. And so you might have some kind of SCADA type of solution here that's looking at the different processes from the loading to the roasting and cooling and blending. We've got a little example here of a roaster with a rotating bin that's here. And so this RPM is what we're going to use, what the manufacturer wanted to use to be able to calculate the availability. If that RPM was running above 50 RPMs, then it would be engaged in a productive process, and it can calculate the availability off of that. And so, like I said, that's not always obvious or easy to get to, but we'll show you how that's done in the demonstration for that example. And we've got some throughput productivity here. Your overall OEE, as I mentioned, it's a product of availability times productivity times quality. And it looks like we'd like to be above 75. That's where we'd like to be. And the main culprit here is availability. So we want to look at that and be able to hopefully increase that as needed. Other metrics such as energy consumption, we've got a transformation that will do that and grab the data across the different lines and be able to do that calculation, as well as algorithms for preventive maintenance to look at machine health and help to calculate what maintenance would need to be done and avoid failures there. And so this is really the end result. And so what I'd like to do is to show you the gears behind the scenes about what's going on and how all this works. And so I'm going to the Pentaho tool here, and this is really what we've got set up for the demonstration. I've got an MQTT client, which is sending data in, and it's sending a lot of data in JSON format. And I want to look at this data and be able to extract what I need from it and do some calculations on that. And then the tool itself, where we've got these pipelines of data where it's a step-by-step process to clean up that data, perform the calculation, and then output the analytic as needed. And so, this is the design environment for Pentaho, and it's a very easy to use, intuitive tool. It enables you to create transformations in jobs. The transformation is what you just saw. That's really the data pipeline that will transform that data, and we'll spend a lot of time describing that. And then the jobs will orchestrate these transformations, usually one or more. And so that allow you to connect to your different sources. It will do error checking to make sure the connectivity of those databases or the networks there to be able to perform different types of grabbing data from FTP from different places so it can feed those transformations and do things like aborts and restarts based on the conditions that might be there. So it really does a good job of orchestrating the transformations and keeping things running. The tool itself, like I said, it's been a while. It's been around for a while, so it's got a very rich set of documentation as well as a user forum that's out there in community. So, many times for specific types of analytics, you can just Google Pentaho example for FFT or something like that. And more than likely, you'll be able to see a list of results where people have tried these things, and sometimes they share them as plugins. So you've got the ability to plug in some of the work that they've done and leverage that too. So to create a transformation, it's really easy. All you have to do is click on the transformation and you get a clean sheet here to work with, and then the different steps that are available here. And so often you'll want to grab some inputs and then do some transformations on it. And so those inputs can be anything from CSV files to JSON files to different types of databases. And so I might want to input a database table here. In this case, I've got a connection that's set up already. But if I want to, it's really easy to change and to connect to various different types of databases that your manufacturing floor might have, or historians through a JDBC connector can be done too. So you see some of the usual suspects here, and really just list where it's at along with the port and some security credentials. And then you're allowed to connect to that, and it will help with the SQL to be able to query the related signals that you want. And from there, we also support other types of inputs such as streams. And so we're going to go through the MQT consumer and producer in our example, but also Kafka is becoming more and more popular to be able to get data in and out of systems. Of course, you'll want to do some transformations on that. Maybe it's manipulated data. We've got a use case where we're going to show a calculator and be able to do a calculation on your availability. And that's got a lot of flexibility. Maybe you want to do some cleaning up. So you want to, and maybe this would come first, you'd actually check for null values and then perform accordingly. Maybe it needs to be set to something, or you just want to drop that metric accordingly. And then finally, it supports a lot as far as different scripts that are out there. This is a low-code environment, so most of it you can do with a no-code interface in these steps, but sometimes existing customers will have some Python code that works really well, and they just want to take that snippet and be able to put it in to a pipeline of data to be able to execute whatever that might be, to work with maybe a Jupyter notebook to feed that data or to run an FFT algorithm or whatever it might be. That can be done as well too. And then finally, you might want to do some types of statistical information on the output of that. Maybe it's univariate analytics where you can just take that data and look at different means and standard deviations and min and max. And so that will produce all those outcomes as well. And so just a basic example of how you can create a transformation with the steps that are here. And so for our specific example, let's go to that coffee roaster that wants to calculate availability. And so availability is operating time divided by your planned production time. And so where are we going to get these values from? And as I said, it's not always obvious. And so what this customer wanted to do is just take that spindle that's rotating on the cooling drum. And if it's above 50 RPMs, it's going to count as a time elapsed towards that availability. And we're also going to get the elapsed production time. So once the production starts, we're going to start from 0. And then this is going to be simply a metric where we just divide that elapsed production time. The aggregated time by the elapsed production time. And maybe that's not easy to get. In our example, we've got that coming in through the feed. but you might have other ways of calculating that as well based on the tags that are coming in to know when a production run starts. And so that's the two different types of data that we're going to use for our availability calculation. And first thing we're going to do is be able to get data from that stream. And so there's a parent transformation that's running here that's really connecting to that MQT broker and that topic, and then taking this JSON string in here, that's here, all this data, and then calling it a message and then passing it to this transformation. And so this transformation will execute every single time we get a new value in here. And so what it's going to do, it's going to look at that JSON and then take that message and then get the relevant fields that I want. In this case, I've got a lot of fields here. I want to clean it up and just need my spindle, RPM information, and the elapsed time that's there, as well as a timestamp. I might want to also get count and quality to calculate productivity as well as quality. So I'll include those two. And so I'm able to get that data and then pass it on to the next steps. And what I also want to do, remember, this is an aggregated time. And so every time this runs, this will start from 0. So I need to save that aggregated data. And so what I'm going to do is once I do my calculate the runtime based on that spindle being above 50, I'm going to save that data so it's available for the next time that's coming around. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just querying that data to be able to get that aggregated runtime. And I'll select that and then join these rows together to be able to perform my runtime calculation. So what this looks like is I've got my input fields here that I said, those 5 from the JSON, and that one that was that saved runtime value. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see if this spindle is above 50. I'm just going to add 5 more seconds to it. And so we've got a sample rate of every 5 seconds. And so we're going to be able to aggregate that and then put the output as roaster runtime. So this can be used downstream. And so very, like I said, it's a simple use case, but sometimes it's just not always obvious of what you can do. Maybe you need to qualify this further with other information that's coming in to make sure that it's running towards your availability count. But this is just one way that you can do that. And then I'm going to calculate my availability. And so here's my calculator step. I've got a new field that I just type in here for availability. And then the fields that are available here, I've got my roaster runtime that I want. And so I can select that as well as the elapsed time. And then I can perform a calculation on it. And so there's various different types of calculations that can be performed on various different types of data. In this case, we've got a couple of numbers that we're performing on, but maybe you want to do some calculations on dates or whatever it might be. You can do that as well too. And this will output this as a number and then pass it down to the next step. And then what we want to do is make sure this is packaged up for the downstream application. We want to store it in a time series database. So maybe we have to put it in the right format for that, or put this off to a Kafka feed and the right format for a downstream application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these fields and put it into a JSON output step, and the tool will automatically do that for me and then send this data out. So we had the data coming in from an MQTT topic that was raw, and now we're going to send it off on an MQTT topic that's clean. And so we've got the clean data, and we've got the analytic there, and we can store that in our data lake, as well as feed this to other applications as well. And so that's the basis of this. To see this in action, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that parent transformation that I had running. And the first thing it does is just initializes that data to 0 if we're starting a production run. And then this, in the same way as the producer was, this is an MQTT consumer, and I'm able to connect to that MQTT broker and that raw topic that's coming in. And I'm going to pass that field off as a message. Remember, that was consumed by that first step on that daughter transformation. And then here's the transformation here, this coffee OEE, which was the one that I just showed you. So it's going to execute that transformation by getting that data from the topic. That data is here, and then doing the calculation. So if I run this, this is off and it's executing and it's waiting for data to be fed to it. And so if I can execute my script from my MQTT client, then it starts getting data in. It's very useful to be able to debug and understand what's going on. So I've got, my steps that are listed here, and then the sub steps. And you can see for every line that comes in, it's getting input and it's running that sub transformation, and then it's putting data out. And if you remember, that data out should be those 5 fields that was at the end of the JSON step for the data that's going to the MQTT feed. And so now if I subscribe to that, I get my my data out that's here from this coffee data clean, and you can see the format that's in the right format for the database I need, along with the analytic that I calculated. And then you can visualize that back on our application that's there, where I've got my availability metric that's here, that's able to be shown. And so just a simple example, but hopefully it shows you some of the flexibility that Pentaho has. Analytics is not just about doing calculations, but it's a lot of, grabbing the data from sources, cleaning it up, getting in the right formats, combining it with other sources of information that maybe it's IT information too, and then doing the calculation and sending it off in a way that can be consumed. So that was one example. The other example.
Rich, can we just take a pause here real quick? There's a couple of questions coming in.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about data movements. Can the data be migrated to other platforms as part of what Pentaho is doing?
Yeah, it can. It certainly can. I mean, we've got steps in here to be able to send it off to the cloud as needed. It also has the ability, in fact, in my next demonstration, to act as a virtual table that provides a JDBC connection. And so that will allow different sources to be able to query that data. And so the data can reside where it is in your databases, but you can perform a transformation that would create a virtual table that will send up that information for whatever that downstream application is. So it's really what it was originally built for, to take that data and send it to different places wherever it needs to go.
Great. Here's another relevant question. Are the databases mentioned running in containers? Are all the databases deployed and running, or is there an option to pick a database based on the use case?
Yeah, you can pick a database based on the use case. So as an example, this H2 database, this is an in-memory database that I'm running along with this. And so we just spun that up for this specific application. But really, the tables that you have out there, a lot of times they're not in containers. They're just installed where they might be within the enterprise, and you can hook up to them as well. And so connecting to them is done in the same manner. So it doesn't matter if it's a container or not.
Great. You're using Grafana here to visualize data. Is there a direct notification system or alert that an operator can use to see the problem?
Yeah, with Grafana itself, it does have alerting capabilities that's used. So that's one way to go about it, and that's a open source free party tool. So I won't spend too much time there, but it does have that capability. But also, for many circumstances, we might integrate with Pentaho's got a REST API client. And so you can take this data and then send it off to Twilio, for example, to get a text alert or something like that. So depending on how your alerting needs to be done, you can do it either in the end visualization tool or in Pentaho itself in coordination with another type of alert mechanism like an SMS. Great.
Well, let's show the next use case here, and we'll take a few more questions after that.
Sure. And so this one is just another use case of where I want to aggregate data from different edge machines. And so, we've got various different ways of connecting to those data sources, whether it be an XLS, maybe it's an older machine that it might not be connected, but there's reports that are available to it. We can grab it from a folder that exists. It might have a database that has that information, or maybe a historian that we could connect to. As we showed in the last example, it can connect to MQTT. So various different ways of connecting. And what we want to do is enrich that data. And so many times you'll just want to add some metadata to it. In this case, what's the name and the location? Well, I want to add the name of line 1, and it's in California. And so I can just add more value to be able to make this analytic that I'm getting from that raw data more descriptive for a business analyst that's going to be consuming this downstream. And then I'm going to do some calculations. I've got some data. It comes in funny formats sometimes, and so sometimes it's in a Unix format, which is a really long integer that is number of seconds from 1970, and I want to put that into a human readable format. And so I can do that by changing this into an actual date format where I can get month, day, and time information. And so I have that here. And then what I want to do is to be able to create dimensions. And so a lot of times, to create a data model to make it efficient to be queried, I want to look at that energy calculation, but I also want to see that, maybe on an aggregate month level, a daily level, or even an hourly level. And so you can create different dimensions that you can drill down into. And that's what these steps are doing. It's just extracting that month information and putting qualifying it. And so this can be stored as its own little dimension into what's referred to as a modern OLAP cube. And so that can have multiple dimensions that allows you, it's pivot table access to be able to do this information. And so we'll extract the qualifiers of the data, the time information, and then the actual measures themselves, which is the energy information, and maybe also some temperatures and humidity information that's coming in from this. And then finally, we can serve this up as a JDBC connector. So this is actually a virtual table where you can leave that data wherever it is and then provide this for access downstream to be able to look at in a pivot table type of format and extract that data as needed. So Pentaho also has various different types of capabilities to be able to look at data and slice and dice the data through our analytics tool. And so Grafana is one way to do it. We also have our different our BA server here that, oops. I have, forget my password here. There we go. Our BA server here that is able to serve up data in different ways. And those ways are from the samples that are here. And so you can have a drill down example of being able to look at that energy information and then, you know, maybe drill into different specifics or just slice and dice based on time or a day or a year, and other types of examples too, as far as reporting into PDFs or maybe a dashboard that you might have. And so various different types of analytics can be formed for the visualization aspect, all served up by that JDBC connector or in different tables that will store that data as well. And so this is just another example of, you know, aggregating data from the different devices and be able to serve it up in a different way. So hopefully that shows you some more flexibility with the tool and how you might want to be able to capture data in different ways. I also, you know, how does all this work? Before I go, if there's any more questions, Steve, about Pentaho, I'm going to switch now to talk about how these containers are put together and then orchestrated by the IoT core.
Yeah, there is before you start that, there's a couple of questions we probably ought to address here. First of all, you know, what we showed here, we are supporting HTTPS, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yep. Another question which is interesting, and you know, there's open source tools out there like Node-RED to do some of these things. What would you say is the advantage of Pentaho, you know, versus using something like Node-RED? What are some of the differentiators you might call out?
Yeah, well, the one thing is it's really built to scale. So you've got, you know, a platform that's been tested and tried and is used by, you know, tens of thousands of consumers out there for enterprise solutions. And so to be able to use this, which I think, you know, might be similar to Node-RED on the edge, but when you take that data and then aggregate it up on a higher level, it's really built to scale out and handle data in aggregate. And do it effectively and reliably. And so I would say, you know, that is one thing. And then just the wealth of different connectors to different types of systems, not just your OT, but also the IT systems that are out there to be able to get that data from those in an easy manner. I think Pentaho, it might be similar, but I think it's just more enterprise grade and built out and supported to be able to do that type of functionality with a lot of robustness built in, not just in these transformations, but to handle the errors around that. And that's really what it's built to do, to make sure that your applications are running reliably for it. And one more thing too is I think in just the data manipulation tools. I mean, you can do that with Node-RED tool, but I think this is really where the origins are from. A lot of cleaning and pipelining of that data. It really makes it easy to be able to do those types of things as well.
Great. Another kind of enterprise related question, which was one of the reasons you gave for using Pentaho here. Can inputs be received from users or devices located at various units located in different countries?
Yeah, it certainly can. And so you can have Pentaho running up in the cloud as long as it has network access to those. It can receive that, it can connect to those sources. So like I said, early on, it can be deployed anywhere, either on the edge or up in the cloud. So really, it's just it's a restriction of you know, as long as we can get access to that those data sources, then we can connect to it.
Yeah. How is Pentaho licensed?
Yeah, good question. And so this is actually a very appealing thing to our customers because it's just based on compute usage. And so some of the other competitive tools will base on number of users and other means, but really it's just simply based on how many cores that you need to perform your calculations. And so that makes it easy for just usage across the organization. It's just a simple matter of how much compute it needs.
Yeah, I know that operations management software has it's really been advantageous recently. Some vendors have been charging, by the computer versus by number of users, and also there's no limitation on the amount of I/O that can come in through it too, right?
No, that's right.
Data restriction, right?
That's absolutely correct too. Yeah, so no limitation there.
Great. We got a couple more questions, but let's go into the next portion of your demo here. Just real
Sure.
quick.
Yeah, I know we might be coming up on time here, so keep me honest about how much time we got left. The IoT core application. Here's security working. I need to log in, session timed out. And so this is our IoT platform. Once you get those containers made, or those transformations made, they can be put into containers, and then they can be used with and deployed and managed with our IoT core platform that you see here. And so, our IoT platform is capable of logically arranging all your assets and connecting those data assets to different devices and gateways that might be on the manufacturing floor or higher up. The data routing capability is it's a nice feature to be able to take those different sources of information and route it to the different databases in the data lake or those different protocols. And then there's alerting capabilities as well. And we'll spend a little time on the repository. This is where the containers are stored and then can be deployed down to the end devices. And there's more features too, like a rich API as well to be able to automate all this activity. And so for our example, we've got this coffee production demo. I've got some lines as well as different individual roasters that I want to look at. And here's the roaster that I have. And I can see the data routes that are connected to it. I've got 2 data routes that are deployed. One will have some IT data coming in, and then that OT data cleaned that will come out. So you can have multiple routes that might go to different sources as well too. You can also apply analytical models as well with this. And so if I wanted to apply it the higher level, a digital twin capability, I could do that and then activate that model. And then I need a route for it. So that's why I can't do that there. But it would give me insights as well as the root cause events, depending on what that model would serve us up. You can see all that here. And so for our roaster here, we've got this connected to a gateway device. And so I'll go to the devices. And we've got our gateway here and some information about it. And I mentioned in our PowerPoint that we can do commands and tasks. And so that's what this feature is for. Before we go there, I'm going to go into the gateway and then see the software that's riding on it. So I've got a couple containers here. One is just a Python demo, and the other is that OEE calculation that I've got up and running. And I can update that software or do different configurations of that as needed. But to how this gets here, what I would do is I would click on this gateway or a group of gateways and hit deploy. And so I can deploy software that's available to me. And that software and container is stored up on the repository here. And so if I go to the repository, I can click on that and I can see my 2 containers. Now these are put together as Docker containers in the same way that you would put together any Docker container. There's a tag that needs to be done for Kubernetes. And so there's just a command line to, once you get your container created, and we can certainly talk about that individually. If you need more information there, I'm happy to discuss that. But it's just tagged accordingly, and then it's simply tarballed up, and you can upload that. And so you'll have a tar or a gzip tar file. You'll find on a computer and upload it and deploy it here. And then it'll be ready for deployment. And then once the device needs it, I can go to that device, or like I said, that device group, and then select it, and then take that container and then deploy that software. And so I would then I can see that these are on there already, but I could select these whatever I wanted. And then typically you'll have some kind of configuration file for Kubernetes, and that will just give the container name, maybe some network information on the ports that it speaks to, and maybe some environmental variables. This is very common with Kubernetes. And I can also have different configuration files and secrets updated as well too.
Hey Rich,
yeah.
I hate to interrupt you here. We got 1 minute left. Could we just bring up the slide and show everybody on the call here how they can download Pentaho for free and try it out?
Yeah, let's do that. And so thank you for keeping me honest on time there, Steve. So to continue the journey, so here's a couple links that we're happy to share with you. You can learn more about our DataOps portfolio. There's a lot of different information there. If you check this link out, you can see different videos of what I was going to continue to show you. Those are all online there, as well as some demonstrations of Pentaho too. And then the free trial of Pentaho is available at this link here, where you can download it. And like I said, there's a lot of rich documentation. There's a lot of very simple examples to get you up and going. And if you need to, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction or help as needed.
Yep. Thanks so much, Rich. And by the way, it was about 3,000 people that download Pentaho, the open source version, every month. So it's a well-supported community, a lot of the very open product. As Rich said, feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn. You can reach out to Haruna or myself also, if you'd like some more information. And really thank everyone for attending this. We hope it's been educational and showing another tool that you could use to be able to do the data integration and management that you want to do at scale, and more than just OT data, really IT and OT data coming together.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining the session today, on your active participation. I'd like to invite you to visit the event page for upcoming educational webcasts such as this one. A couple of them to mention: the December 7 and 8, we have IoT World Manufacturing Day. We also have a IoT Reference Architecture Day, called the All Things Industrial IoT on January 26. I also like to thank you, our sponsor, Hitachi Vantara, for this session, to our speakers, Haruna, Rich, Steve, for sharing their thoughts and insights and expertise for us today. And if you like what you heard today, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on our social channels. Likewise, if you have a suggestion for a topic, we welcome your feedback. So please drop us a message and let us know. This concludes the program for today. Thank you so much for joining.